We are back with another episode of Made for Philly. I am Bryce Zielinski alongside Matt Minton. We are presented by Godzilla Media, and it's good to be back. We had a couple weeks off, some scheduling changes and some craziness with the holidays and everything kind of threw us a curveball, but we are back. We are back recording on Wednesdays to have our episodes dropped on Thursday, and we have a lot to get to, Matt. Obviously, we have the Birds to talk about as they head into the bye week, controlling their own playoff destiny. A little controversy going along with them heading into the bye week as well, and maybe not controversy, but some people would like to call it one. And then, of course, we're going to talk Flyers, right? I mean, that's probably a big talking point that we really need to hit, which is Alain Vigneault is gone. He is fired. The Flyers have lost 9 straight as of recording, and the Flyers are a complete dumpster fire. And if we have some time, we'll talk some Sixers as well, and what is coming around with Damian Lillard and a potential Ben Simmons trade there. But, Matt, let's get right to it. The Eagles, the Birds playoff push continues after a very, very impressive 33-18 win against the Jets. Obviously, it's the Jets. You're supposed to beat the Jets. But this came with Gardner Minshew being the starting quarterback after it was give or take. Jalen Hurts may or may not play. He ended up not playing. Gardner Minshew steps in, and the offense didn't really miss a step at all. And Gardner looked really good. And here, here the Eagles are going into their Week 14 bye week at 6-7, controlling their own playoff destiny. Coming out of the bye, Jalen Hurts is expected to be back. He is deemed the starter per Nick Sirianni, so we'll get to all that in a second. But the rest of the schedule, all within the division, 3 games behind Dallas, neck and neck with Washington and San Francisco for that final playoff spot. But the bottom line is Eagles control their own destiny, and we're going to learn a lot about this team and Jalen Hurts if they can get this thing together and make that playoff push.
Yeah, so I guess I'll go where you left off with controlling your own destiny, where, we knew that they had a chance to compete, but now this is a good spot to see them after where they were at one point in the year. We weren't sure what they were going to be, if even Sirianni was going to finish the year. Now to see that he's in a spot, this is a great test for him, controlling his own destiny against all divisional opponents going forward. It'll be interesting to see if Hurts comes back fully healthy. It's a good thing, if there was going to be a change, you have the bye week after this to get him reacclimated. So I think this is probably the biggest test for him and Sirianni this season, and it comes together where here's the situation, you control your own destiny. Can you go out and win 3 or 4 games?
Yeah, and when you look at this Eagles team, and Sirianni before this game was clear all week that whatever happens Sunday, whoever started at quarterback, no matter how well they played, Jalen Hurts is the starting quarterback for the Eagles. And that, I think that's important. That, let's be clear, Jalen Hurts could not go this week. It's important to have a backup quarterback that can step in and carry the offense and keep this train moving. And that's exactly what Gardner Minshew did. Hurts doesn't deserve, look, I get it, especially in this city, the backup quarterback position as a whole has this, mantra of the next best thing, right? No matter who the backup quarterback is, the city wants to see it. And Nick Foles kind of put that position in the light that it is. But let's be clear. Hurts doesn't deserve to lose a starting job to Gardner Minshew based on 2 games at MetLife Stadium. The first one would be the Giants, where Hurts probably had his best, or I should say worst game of the season, and a good game by Minshew against one of the worst teams, if not the worst team in all of football. It's important to remember that Minshew was playing Sunday against one of the worst defenses in all of football. And I think that's where we really need to leave off. Now, I want to give credit where credit's due. Minshew finished 20 for 25 for 242 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 133.7 passer rating. That's the highest by an Eagles quarterback since Nick Foles had a 141.4 against the Vikings in 2018. So this is one of those things that, he was very good. It's going to be an interesting, 2 weeks of radio talk. Bottom line is this is still Jalen Hurts' team. It does no good for the Eagles to turn to Gardner Minshew because this season is about trying to figure out if Jalen Hurts is the franchise quarterback. We know Gardner Minshew is not the franchise quarterback. We saw him as a starting quarterback in Jacksonville. He's good at times, and he's really bad at times. That's what Gardner Minshew is. He's a serviceable backup quarterback. Stay grounded and realize who they played, and that was the New York Jets.
That's where I'm at. Like, I'm a big Gardner Minshew guy. I'm a big fan of his
Oh,
personality.
gotta love the
He's
mania, but
probably, like I say as a joke, he's America's quarterback. But when you look at just the team and the whole point of the season and what you invested with Jalen Hurts, as well as Minshew did play against the Jets, you do need to see what Hurts has got for the rest of the year in this situation. Now, if he continues to struggle and you're still in contention for playoffs, it's good to know you have that reliable backup there. I mean, I'd say the backup quarterback is probably the 9th or 10th most important position, and it's good to know that they have him there. But when you look at what the whole point of this season has been the entire year, as much as you may or may not like Gardner Minshew, it has to be Hurts' job going forward, because this is going to tell you whether or not what the need's going to look like in the draft or free agency. You need to see Hurts get these last couple reps in.
Right. And I mean, even going back, you didn't trade Carson Wentz away to bench Jalen Hurts in the last quarter of the season when you're in line to make the playoffs. That's just malpractice by the organization if they did that. And I give Sirianni a lot of credit. He didn't, and you know how last year, like Doug Peterson kind of like sat there and had to think about his answer when asked about the quarterback position. The question was asked, and Sirianni was like, "Hell yeah, he's my quarterback." I mean, that's something. He's the leader of this locker room, whether you think he deserves it or not. He's the leader of this locker room, has a chance to really take this team and make it to the playoffs. And this year is about Jalen Hurts. I'm going to say it again. The Eagles need to find out who exactly he is and what he can be. They need to study. They need to evaluate every rep, every snap, every decision, every throw, and simply put, that ain't happening if he's on the bench. Right? I mean, it's not happening if he's sitting there on the bench watching Gardner Minshew. And they didn't draft him in the second round last year and then trade Carson Wentz to bench Hurts after one bad game. Guess what? They're really treating this year as Jalen Hurts' rookie year. You remember the ups and downs Carson had his rookie year, only to see him become an MVP finalist the next. I mean, look, I understand it, but at the same time, this would not be the right time to make a move like that. And where the Eagles are at right now, I mean, this team as a whole impresses me about how they bounce back after bad losses. And Jalen Hurts has proven to do that too this year. They lost to the Chiefs, beat the Panthers. Lost to the Raiders, beat the Lions. I get it, the Lions. I get it. Lost to the Chargers, beat the Broncos. Lost to the Giants, beat the Jets. They're 4-1 in their last 5 games after a loss. And that speaks a lot of the character inside the Eagles locker room and the leadership inside the Eagles locker room, because this is not, I mean, this is kind of a dust statement, but this isn't the most talented Eagles team we've ever had, right? I mean, this team has.
I agree with you. Yeah.
This team has clear holes. So there have been a lot of Sunday afternoons where things just haven't been easy, have not been enjoyable to watch, and going 13 weeks without a bye is a lot. You have to remember that too. Having the bye week 14 in an
pretty late
extended season, that's a lot. And that's a lot on this team. So they have been really holding it together well. But I mean, you could tell this team believes in Sirianni, believes in the leadership, believes in the players themselves. They've been down a lot, but they don't stay down. And that says a lot to me and makes me feel good about what the future could be, especially when you look at the schedule that they have left and the opportunity that presents itself. Not only can they win, really win out, depending what that Dallas game means at the end. And I'm not really scared of Dallas at this point. I mean, it would take an epic collapse from Dallas, but they're not even out of the division yet. I mean, they could win the division if Dallas implodes on themselves. But realistically, I mean, they're right there for the 7th and final playoff spot.
So you're telling me there's a chance. But for the most part, it does seem like that there has been a lot of good improvements. And it almost seems like, revisiting it a month and a half later, was Sirianni's flower speech as stupid as we thought it was? Because now where I'm looking at it, it's still like maybe not like the smartest, speech I heard, but like you kind of see where he's getting at with the idea of keep putting in the work and trying to let the roots grow out from there, or
Yep.
however exactly he phrased it. So definitely really excited and nervous for this playoff push, because this is going to tell you a lot about where this team is at. If they can find a way to hold on and sneak into the playoffs, it probably accelerates the rebuild by a year, because then you got some free agents looking like, oh, they made the playoffs this year. That they might be able to, I might be able to fill in this hole and help this team go further. So it can really tell you a lot about this team's character and how much Sirianni has improved since his early season struggles, to have an opportunity in his rookie year to control his team's destiny and get them to the playoffs. Also, same thing for Hurts character wise.
Right, and that's kind of the conversation. I mean, the talking point, at least up here in New York, was, and I'm sure you may have heard about this as well, but Bryce Hall, the corner for the Jets, was explaining how they assumed that Jalen Hurts was going to play and that the game plan wasn't going to change if Gardner Minshew was going to be in the lineup because they're similar quarterbacks, which just is not the case. It's like comparing Michael Vick and Nick Foles. That's just not, like, they're not the same, and the offense was not the same. But to make a long story short, I mean, the media has been ripping that comment, and the fact that Saleh just simply did not adjust to the fact that Jalen Hurts might not play in that game. If you go back to who we wanted to be the head coach way back, and I'm talking, after they fired Doug, Saleh was one of those guys. Like, he was at the top of everyone's list.
He was
the
up
Eagles,
there for me.
he was up there for me too. I really wanted Saleh. Nick
I was
Sirianni.
I was on the Bieniemy train for the most part, but
So
Saleh
was I.
was
So
up
was
there.
I. But then when it became clear that nobody was going to hire Bieniemy and Saleh was out there, I was like, okay, I can handle Saleh. Sirianni out-coached Robert Saleh big time.
He did.
Big time. And that's something. Sirianni has gotten better. And we went from the point of Sirianni could be one and done. I mean, if he keeps this up, he one and done. He would not run the football. He would not adjust to. This team is leading the league in rushing yards a game. 162.7 yards a game. Leads the NFL. They're third in time of possession. This team was on the field for 22 minutes in the second half. That is impressive. And they're doing it with multiple backs. The defense didn't have their best game, but they did what they had to do.
Oh, they had a better second half. The first
had
half,
a better second half.
Lost.
You don't. It was a little concerning to see them allow Zach Wilson to do what Zach Wilson did, but you got to give this team a lot of credit. And you look at the schedule coming up. I know they laid a dud against the Giants. Trust me, I was there. I was at that game, and it was miserable. Their last four games, Matt. I mean, home against Washington, and if you're scared against Washington and Taylor Heineke, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, they're on a little hot streak right now, but that team is average at best. Home against the Giants, at Washington, and then home against Dallas. You have one more road game left. And that's an hour and a half trip down 95 to FedEx Field, where there's probably going to be more Birds fans there anyway. This team, man, I mean, you look at the standings and look, you're at 6-7. You're currently the 8th seed, but you have Washington at 6-6 as the 6th seed. I mean, you play them twice. San Francisco's 6-6. You don't have the tiebreaker with them. And then you're ahead of Minnesota, who's 5-7, and have the tiebreakers against Carolina, Atlanta, and the Saints. So, like,
they really have every opportunity in front of them.
They have every opportunity in front of them. And if you're looking to see, is Jalen Hurts that guy, this is the time. I mean, go and beat these teams that you're supposed to beat. And I think realistically, if you go paper to paper, I have one loss left. That could be the final week of the season against Dallas. And who knows if that game's going to matter.
It's probably where I'm at. I mean, I haven't paid too much attention to Washington, this year, but Taylor Heineke can be good when he wants to be, but for the most part, he is human. He's very exploitable. They can take advantage of him.
Their last two games, they've won 17-15. I mean, come on.
The Giants game, they were right in it until the very end with Hurts having one, probably by far his worst game as a starter. And they beat themselves. They should have won that game.
They beat themselves.
Shout out Rager for dropping 2 game-winning touchdown passes.
You know what?
But it's mostly on Hurts. We're not going to talk about that. I'm over it. But they were right there, even with Hurts making some of his worst reads and worst mistakes that he's made. So,
I mean, they lost by 6. He had 2 red
yep.
zone interceptions.
And
Do the math.
I'm not afraid of Daniel Jones. I'm not.
No, and I mean, right now he's hurt, and it's Mike Glennon. So
Yeah, I'm
mean,
not afraid of Mike Glennon either.
no, I wouldn't be either. The Giants are a dumpster fire. That really was a bad loss, but and credit to the Eagles for bouncing back. The offense looked good, and look, this is a team that I think is going to make the playoffs. I really have a gut feeling that they're going to be one of those wild card teams when it's all said and done. It just seems like a team that's growing with confidence. The bye came at the right time. They're expected to. Miles Sanders is expected to be okay. Jason Kelce is expected to be okay. These guys can rest up and really gear towards a playoff run here. And who knows what happens? I mean, look, they go and play, say, Arizona in the first round. I don't
think
know
it's
how
most
it's going to
likely,
shake out.
if we were the 7th seed, it would most likely be Arizona or Green Bay.
It would be.
What they said it was.
It would be. Look, if we have to go up to Lambeau and face the Packers, I'm not exactly, expecting that to be a dub. But Arizona's beatable. But let's get there first. But I'm not scared of Arizona at all.
Okay.
So, Green Bay was my Super Bowl pick this year. I just think the way Rodgers is handling himself and, the one last dance type thing with the Packers, it just screams that they're going to find a way to do it. And the AFC just leaves nothing but mediocrity out there. So I think the representative of the NFC, whoever it may be, is going to win the Super Bowl.
Quite
and
possibly.
I think that's going to be Green Bay.
Because the favorite AFC right now is the Mac Jones-led Patriots, who have shown to be very beatable early in the year. But
yeah, where the hell did that come from?
I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you.
But no. So next week, obviously, we will break down and preview the Washington football team matchup at home at the Link, 1:00. But this is the bye week, and I hate bye weeks because I can't watch the Birds. But at the same time, it is nice. I don't have to work myself up to the point where I want to throw up because the Eagles, are the Eagles going to win or not? So, little stress-free weekend for the city of Philadelphia. Let's go to the other talking point, Matt, of the town, and it's really not going to be an enjoyable talk. AV, he's out, and with good reason too, right? I mean, you look at the last 9 games for the Philadelphia Flyers, and it has been just absolutely horrible. And I fed you this stat before we went on air, and I will throw it out again for our listeners. The Flyers, who are now 8-11-4, have lost 9 straight games. Now, depending on what happens by the time this show gets put up, maybe they stop the streak tonight. I don't know. But as of recording time, they have lost 9 straight games, 0-7-2, and have been outscored 43-18.
That they put up 14 goals in their last 2 games. They allowed 14 goals in their last 2 games, something like that.
This team is they've lost themselves. They have lost themselves, and Giroux said it as much. Chuck Fletcher said it as much, that they've lost their way. The talent is there. That's the frustrating part. This is a talented team, but for whatever reason, the consistency isn't there, and they have found themselves in one of the worst stretches that I really can remember in a long, long time. I mean, AV came here to try to win a Stanley Cup. He's been successful everywhere he has gone, and of course, it has to be Philadelphia, the one team that he could not lead to a Stanley Cup final. Especially after the way the first year ended. I mean, so much promise after that first year under AV. It was a finalist for Coach of the Year, and just to see it now. So really, and you're around the team a lot more than I am, obviously from a different angle, but with what you're doing with the Flyers, I mean, you're seeing it in person. So I guess, I have my thoughts about it, but I guess I'll throw this question at you because you're there and you've kind of seen it more in front of you than me up here in New York, seeing it on TV and, reading all the Flyers insiders as best as I can. Why now? Why fire AV now?
Um, so I don't know how much I see being there, but I think that, what I've seen from the team is after they didn't want to see him go. I don't think AV wanted to leave. I think that Chuck made a really tough decision and thought, like, when you lose 9 in a row with the expectations we had, something's got to change. And I think it was a situation where they lost their identity. And as talented as a team they are, they're also a rather fragile team. You saw when Ryan Ellis got hurt, they've had trouble figuring out their defensive
Yep.
alignments. You know what Provorov is? He's a bona fide defensive, but he can't do it all on his own.
Right.
I feel like Ristolainen might have underperformed a little bit since we brought him in. They're trying to find the matchups that work, but they just aren't. Combine that with now Carter Hart and even Martin Jones starting to struggle a little bit and show more signs of vulnerability. Just a lot seems to be falling apart right now, and I think that it was an option where they just wanted to try to go in a different direction to see what they could do. But regardless, when you lose 9 in a row the way they lost 9 in a row, it's tough to find your footing and just get back into it. Even though that they're not out of it, stuff's got to start changing. It's got to start changing quickly.
Yeah, to your point, the last two games, Matt, 7-1 and 7-5. I mean that's just unacceptable. To me, it's truly astounding how quickly things unraveled for AV in his Flyers tenure. Like I said, I mean, we started where he was a coach of the year candidate. This Flyers team seemed to be back in Stanley Cup contention. Even started last year pretty well before falling off, started this year well before falling off. And it just, I think fans seem to start to really like the toughness, the lightheartedness that AV brought. The Flyers were projected to finish with 104 to 105 points, which would have been the most since their 106-point campaign in 2010, 2011. That is AV's first year with the Flyers, was when they were projected to have 104, 105 points before the pandemic ruined it. For some reason, the Flyers lost their way under AV. I don't know if he started to lose the locker room. I don't think he did. I certainly know that he tried, and certainly you go back to his first year and his message was clearly well received because they did really well.
I think for the most part,
they were a good team.
I think for the most part, even up to his firing, they still supported him. But like when you're just, like I keep saying, 9 in a row is just going to change everybody's emotions, and something had to change. And I guess that Chuck chose AV.
Yeah. So when it comes to figuring out, I should say, who the next head coach is going to be, for now it's Mike Yeo, the assistant coach. Is the interim head coach and assistant coach Daryl Williams, who has been with AV for many, many years, both in New York and Vancouver. This is the first year together with the Flyers. He's taking over Michel Therrien's power play responsibilities, who also got let go. So, this was I really like this coaching staff when they put it together, like Alain Vigneault, Mike Yeo, Michel Therrien. All three were head coaches at some point. They had a lot of head coaching experience. Mike Yeo was with Chuck Fletcher in Minnesota. Michel Therrien obviously has multiple tenures in the NHL as well. Yeo's going to get a solid shot, but I'm starting to think that once this year plays out, there's going to be a complete rebuild, and I'm sure that they're going to try to find someone to pair that, whether it be Rick Tocchet. That's probably the popular name right now is Rick Tocchet. Mike Yeo's going to probably get the rest of the year, but I mean, right now you just got to piece together and realize, try to figure out, is this a salvageable season? And that's going to be on Chuck Fletcher to try to figure out. Health is obviously important right now, which they are not. They are not a healthy hockey team right now. Do they have the right personnel? To your point, Ryan Ellis remains the most important piece. And when is he going to be back? He had, when him and Provy were paired, they were pretty good. And they were having a lot of success on the back end. He's a team-changing player, man, and he's been out because that lower body is expected to be back around the end of the year or the beginning of January, calendar year, not actual season. But right now, from the way Chuck Fletcher was talking, it sounds like they believe that they could still turn this around and make the playoffs. I just don't know if that's realistic with the inconsistency of this hockey team right now and the lack of health and depth.
I mean, I think they could do it, but like you said, when you keep on bouncing around with injury and just inconsistency, it's hard to tell. I mean, Ryan Ellis, when he's healthy, he is a first line defenseman, but the problem is with his whole career, he's had trouble staying healthy. So it's a matter of when he comes back, whether that is the beginning of January, like the medical officials say, where will they be at and how long will he be able to stay healthy for? So it's definitely going to be a very interesting challenge because it'll tell you around the trade deadline if they want to be conservative buyers or just hard sellers and really tell you what the direction is going forward. So these next couple weeks and months are going to be really pivotal as to not just this season for the Flyers, but the next 3 or 4 coming up.
Yeah, it sucks. It really does. It sucks to see because I personally liked AV. I thought that the Flyers were really headed in the right direction, and something along the way, the message got lost. The message stopped getting received, and this team got unhealthy, and it sucks. But we will keep you guys posted, obviously, with the orange and black as the season progresses. Hopefully, they turn it around. We will see. We do have a couple minutes left, Matt, and obviously we need to talk about our Sixers, right? We can't go an episode without talking about the Sixers, and they're starting to turn things around a little bit. Joel Embiid is playing at his MVP level again. They're fortunate to have the superstar center back because things were starting to really go off the rails there for a while. But Embiid's latest performance, dropping 43 against the Hornets in a 127-124 overtime win. But this Sixers team, man, they're starting off really slow. Embiid is willing this team. You're getting some depth shooting from guys like Shake Milton. But bottom line is this team needs to help Joel Embiid get to the promised land. And it's not going to help with Ben Simmons sitting at home with his broke ass complaining about, God knows what. Daryl Morey, do literally anything. Literally anything. Stop sitting around, put your ego aside, and get this cone out of this city and get some help for this man. I don't care if it's CJ McCollum. I don't care if it's a combination of Malcolm Brogdon and Levert. I do not care. Do something, though. Do something to help Joel Embiid, because as the Sixers continue their season efforts to resolve this situation, the impasse continues to cast a black cloud over them. Right? I mean, there is this continuous black cloud over them, and as they're pushing themselves back into the top echelon of the Eastern Conference, now that they're healthy, the Sixers need to get this over with, because nobody is winning when Ben Simmons is sitting at home and Embiid is trying to do everything he can to will this team to victories each night, because eventually it's going to break him down and he's not going to be healthy, and this team is really going to be in some trouble.
They really are, and it really does suck to see, how the situation is unfolding right now, because Embiid's doing Embiid things right now. You know what he is, and it just feels like Daryl Morey just sitting on top of his pride, or holding on to his pride, I should say, and just not making a move to help him out. I mean, it's literally like you're watching Joel Embiid's prime years just getting wasted right in front of you, even if, they should not have to go into overtime to beat the Hornets, given the Sixers team. And, I thought for a while the McCollum deal was going to be done possibly before we even recorded this episode. But, if you're Morey, you got to understand that Ben Simmons is never going to play for the Sixers again, regardless. And the longer you hold out and let this situation drag on, his trade value is only going to get worse. No one's going to magically just offer you that big deal you wanted at the All-Star break or the trade deadline or next season. If you want to still get good value for him right now and help this team right now in the locker room and on the court, this trade has to be done now. And what exactly I would take? Probably a lot, whether it's just some possibly a CJ McCollum or, God knows Damian Lillard, whatever's going on in Portland right now, or just a couple role players to even out this rotation, give Harrison and Embiid some help and just balance out the rotation. You still have an opportunity right now in this season to catapult yourselves back up and possibly do really well and maybe even win the Eastern Conference. Who knows? But if you're going to go anywhere, you have to trade Ben immediately for the sake of this team's chemistry and for Embiid health wise.
Right. I mean, the Sixers have kind of put themselves in between a rock and a hard place because Simmons' value is only going to be lower if it's not already at its lowest point than what it is now. And I mean, Morey overplays him. So, like, when you look at it, would Buddy Hield and anybody for Ben Simmons be an immediate upgrade? Probably, even though it's a role player in return for a potential star. But that is where Daryl Morey is running into a wall. He can't get over what Ben Simmons was, not what Ben Simmons is. And that those are two completely different things right now. And he can't fathom that he will not get equal value or more in return as he's used to doing, like Al Horford for Danny Green or Josh Richardson sent for Seth Curry. He usually wins deals like this. Let's be real. This is not, I mean, at this point, they're not going to get better anytime soon. And getting rid of Simmons puts them one step closer to being a title contender, whether Morey wants to admit that or not, because they won't be with Ben back on the floor, because there is no way he could show his face in that locker room. He just can't. He can't. That's where Damian Lillard comes in, right? And you look at Portland. Lillard prefers, at this point, from everything that we've heard, keep in mind, Trailblazers, the recent talk is they're a mess right now at 11-13. Just fired general manager Neil Olshey. They might be signaling, the reset button is coming in Portland, which could make Damian Lillard available. And that is obviously the, pie in the sky, right? That's what the Sixers and Sixers fans have been praying for when it comes to a return of Ben Simmons. If Lillard is really looking there and saying, I want to play with Joel Embiid, I think this will happen. Per Stephen A. Smith, though, Lillard prefers to go to the Knicks if he were to request a trade. He wants to be the guy in a huge market. And obviously, he would be a guy in a big market next to Joel Embiid. He's not going to be the guy when Joel Embiid is in Philadelphia. But if Lillard is serious about winning a championship and taking advantage of what he does best, this would have Philly, in my opinion, would be the number one preference. And per Stephen A., yes, Lillard wants to go to the Knicks,
Bing bong.
but bing bong. But the Sixers just make so much sense.
They do, and I think
they
that
make
he would
so
go
much
to
sense.
either one gladly, but because at the end of the day, Damian Lillard can't exactly choose what team he wants to go to. But I think another point to at least consider if you're going to move a guy like Damian Lillard, understand what it's going to take to get him. Is he going to commit to you long term? So from the sounds, it sounds like he's willing to commit to New York long term. So would a trial one with Philadelphia, would this team convince him to come in long term? So that's what I think the big question is. But still, have the opportunity to bring in that guy for this year and make a run at the title, and all you have to do is to move a guy who's not going to be here anymore. It's a risk that you got to think is worth taking at least some of the time.
The bottom line is the Sixers have the most to offer. Simmons, a 25-year-old, three-time All-Star who does everything at an elite level
Defensive
other
player
than
of the year
shooting.
candidate.
Correct. Literally elite at every level except shooting when he's at his best. While Lillard might prefer the Knicks, he has to realize the Sixers offer the best chance at winning a title. They really do. And I know Portland would want to do right by Dame because he's done everything he could for Portland and that city and that organization. But then when you look at it, right, a duo of Lillard and Embiid would be pretty tough to stop. I don't care what team you are. Just dreaming about the pick and rolls where Lillard's long range shooting would be a big help to Embiid's elite post play. That is, and assuming you don't have to give up Tobias Harris, who's really struggling right now. Tobias Harris has not been good. But to possibly pair, Lillard, and look, I really like Maxey. Maxey has done a fantastic job, but I'm assuming he might have to be a part of that trade to Portland if Lillard is involved. Just thinking like Lillard, Curry, Toby, maybe Danny. I mean, you have Danny Green in there. You have Embiid, Drummond coming off the bench. You have Shake, Furkan,
Georges
uh,
Yang.
Georges Yang. This would be a very, very tough team to stop. And in my opinion, would catapult this team as favorites in the Eastern Conference if they pulled
Quite
that off.
possibly. Quite possibly. So, Daryl, the move's not going to make itself. And
No.
regardless,
And I
like,
tweeted, here, Daryl, I'll do your job for you. I'll go trade bet. Like,
I'll negotiate
help
with
me
teams
help
if you give me
you.
the phone. But in all
Help me
seriousness,
help you.
him sitting on the bench and doing nothing isn't going to help. You can find him
No.
whatever you want, but if he's not going to play for the team again, he's not going to help you out if he's sitting on the bench. So go get some help and use the guy who's literally worthless to your team right now to go get that help.
I mean, clearly, finding him and making him stay at home being a broke bitch. I mean, that's clearly not resolving anything, right? I mean, he's
Nope.
still sitting at home. He's not here. He doesn't want to get paid. Like he wants to sulk and say that he's broke, but he's still not coming and playing. So it's just a mess. And at 13 and 11, the Sixers, look, they play Charlotte. What I believe we're recording tonight. They play Charlotte tonight, don't they? They play Charlotte again. Am I wrong on that?
Think so. I can double check real quick, but
Doesn't matter for the listeners. But I'm just thinking. I mean, look,
they are playing tonight. They are playing tonight.
They are playing tonight. Okay. That's so weird. 2 straight games at Charlotte. That doesn't make sense. That's weird. Mm-hmm. That's weird to me. But this is obviously, again, you don't look at the NBA season really till after Christmas. So the Sixers getting healthy at the right time. They got through their COVID issues. Ben Simmons, I would assume, will be gone sooner rather than later.
Fingers crossed.
Hope, fingers crossed. And then we could bring somebody of competence, whether it be role players or they could actually pull off getting a Damian Lillard type or a Bradley Beal or a CJ McCollum and get this team to, that next echelon. Because right now, look, it's just going to be what the Sixers are right now. They'll make the playoffs, but they're not going anywhere. They'll win a series or two, but then when they run into Miami or Brooklyn, I mean, forget about it. They're going to get wiped. So Sixers got to do something. Embiid can only do so much, and it's just frustrating. I know Jeff is frustrated as well. I mean, I see his tweets when he's ripping off on the account. I mean, it's just organizational malpractice not to get Embiid some help at this point.
100%. When you have your star player right there, still at his MVP form, Embiid is the kind of guy who can 100% be the best player on a championship-winning team. But that's not going to matter if the guys right behind him aren't doing their part and helping this team the same way he can. So you have to go out and find him because this fan base, you're going to start to lose the city after we've had, 3 or 4 straight second-round exits, after all these 4 years of intentionally losing to make this team better. Not like intentionally losing, not rebuilding, intentionally losing. So at some point, you got to understand you need to make a move, not just for the team's sake, but for the city's sake before you start to lose your fans, you lose your support. And that's not something I want to see from this team right now, especially concerning the fact that they sell out almost every night at home. You want to see this team get that last player and at least try to get past the second round to show what they can really be.
It's been frustrating for sure. This is a Sixers team that, as of recording, finds itself in 6th place in a jam-packed Eastern Conference. They just kind of need to catapult themselves ahead of this mess and really fight for that top seed. And that would, be a nice kickstart if Daryl Morey did his goddamn job and brought somebody in to help Joel Embiid. So that'll do it for this week's episode. A little shorter episode this week. We tackled a lot though in a short amount of time. We tackled the Birds, we tackled the Flyers, we tackled the Sixers. Baseball lockout. I mean, I would love to sit here and talk Phillies with you, but the Phillies sat on their ass and got Corey Knebel. And then now baseball's locked out. So until baseball's back, can't really talk the Fightins, and because they literally cannot do anything. I don't even think the account can tweet. So it sucks. Baseball in a lockout sucks. This is the first time in our lifetimes, Matt, that we have seen an MLB lockout. But from everything that I've heard, they're not close. I would be stunned. from what I've heard, June, July opening day is the most realistic at this point, which is
That's
that
crazy
hurts.
to think about.
That hurts
Yeah.
to think about. It does. Because of what the Phillies could potentially do this offseason. Who knows? I mean, you still got Castellanos out there, you still got Schwarber, you still have some options, but the Mets, man, they made some moves. So with that pit, you and I were talking a little bit like. I mean, the Mets are out there making moves. You have the defending World Series champions in your division, and you have the Phillies sitting here with Corey Knebel. I mean, what are we
Good
doing?
pickup, but what's he going to do by himself?
Look, yeah, great. Like I like, and you said it too. Like I like Corey Knebel. Don't get me wrong, but you also lost Hector Neris. So you
just
really
your all-time bullpen strikeout guy who really thrived as a setup man when he was given the opportunity, and
he was better.
Let him walk.
He was better once he figured out his role. This is a bullpen that's in trouble, still in a heaping amount of trouble, and a lineup that doesn't really have the firepower yet to counteract what the Mets are going to be throwing with a combination of Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom. My Lord. I mean, that's the best 1-2 punch. I mean, it's not
and
close.
Healthy. When DeGrom's fully healthy, 100%.
When DeGrom's healthy, and you have a little question mark around that elbow in Scherzer, so it could unravel, and it is the Mets, so it'll inevitably unravel at some point. It's just a matter of when. But I hope soon we could talk some baseball and get through free agency, get pitchers and catchers reporting in February. Here I am already talking about spring training. It's December 8th. So I think that signals it's time to hop on out of here. But Matt, it was good catching up with you once again on air. It was good getting the show back underway. And this will be the norm now. We'll record on Wednesday nights, drop our episodes on Thursday. And obviously next week, we will be right back at it, breaking down the Birds' next matchup, talking Flyers, Sixers, and maybe some Phillies. We'll see. Doubt it because they can't do anything. So for Matt, I am Bryce. This was Made for Philly. We are presented by Godzilla Media. You could catch this episode and every single one of our episodes on Apple, Spotify, and or YouTube. Make sure you follow our Twitter page at Made for Philly, my personal Twitter account at ZBryce21, and Matt's personal Twitter account at Matt__Minton. Stay safe out there. Enjoy the stress-free weekend of football without the Birds, and we will catch you next week, ready to break down everything you need to know about the Washington football team. Have a good weekend, everyone.